The system wanted me to go after Leah Miller. I just laughed, like I'd throw away my fiancée, a woman who's my equal in every way, a beauty who could make kingdoms fall, for some low-level apprentice with mediocre talent and even more mediocre looks. Sure, I do a few chores for some extra mana crystals. But romancer? Get real. My name is Ethan Sterling. As the prime disciple of Ethelgard Academy, I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth and a core brimming with so much mana it practically spills over. My mindscape is a fortress of calm and stability. No one in my generation even comes close. The line of admirers, both inside and outside the academy, could stretch from the main gate all the way down to the town at the base of the mountain. I've never given them a second thought. The path to true power is long, and only breakthroughs are worth my time. One day, I was sitting cross-legged on the obsidian meditation slab in my sanctum, refining ambient mana, when a strange mechanical voice echoed through my mindscape. It came out of nowhere, yet it was as clear as if someone were whispering in my ear. Ding! Host soul compatibility confirmed. Romance system successfully bound. I frowned, the wisp of mana I'd been condensing at my fingertips dissipating into nothing. My ethereal sense dove inward. And sure enough, there it was, a pale blue orb of light hovering in my mindscape. Faint text flickered within it, radiating a bizarre energy. In my centuries of life, I've seen soul-stealing heretics and dealt with clinging phantoms, but I'd never heard of anything called a system. I was about to probe it with my ethereal sense when the mechanical voice spoke again. Newbie mission issued. Proceed to the west corner of the service annex and rescue objective Leah Miller from her predicament. Reward: 10,000 mana crystals. Objective? Leah Miller? I raised an eyebrow. My ethereal sense swept over the Academy's student registry, double-checking before locking onto her file. Just as I thought, a service apprentice with pathetic talent, barely a third-tier apprentice. Her daily duties were sweeping the front gates and tending the herb gardens. In the grand scheme of Ethelgard, she was less than a speck of dust. And 10,000 mana crystals? A joke. Any random jade box in my sanctum's vault held enchanted herbs worth far more than that. A reward that paltry couldn't even motivate me to stand up. Still, that blue orb was just floating there in my mindscape, and this so-called system had a mysterious air about it. Besides, I was genuinely curious what kind of person this bizarre system would designate as my romantic target. After a moment's thought, I finally rose and left my sanctum. Ethelgard Academy is built on a strict hierarchy. The prime disciple's sanctum sits atop Skirich Peak, where the mana is richest. The service annex, meanwhile, is at the very edge of the mountain's base, where the mana is thin and tainted with the smell of dust and labor. The further down I walked, the plainer the scenery became. The disciples' fine silk robes gave way to coarse linen tunics. The aura of my status clung to me, and every service apprentice I passed bowed low, not daring to meet my gaze. As I approached the west corner of the service annex, I saw 3 or 4 apprentices in service uniforms surrounding a slender figure. The one in the lead, a brutish-looking guy, shoved the girl in the middle. His voice was sharp. "Leah, the foreman told you to pick a stalk of dewdrop bloom from the gardens. And what do you bring back? This mangled trash. You think you can afford to mess up his orders?" The others chimed in with jeers. One of them kicked the wicker basket at the girl's feet, sending the bruised herbs spilling into the dirt, making the whole scene look even more pathetic. I walked toward them, my boots making soft sounds on the cobblestones. The bullies froze, then whipped around. When they saw my robes and recognized my face, their eyes widened in terror. The aggression vanished from their faces, replaced by pure panic. Their legs trembled as they bowed hastily, their voices shaking. P-Prime Disciple Sterling. I didn't even look at them. My gaze fell on the girl they'd surrounded. She was thin, dressed in a faded service uniform. Her dark hair was tied back with a simple wooden pin, a few loose strands falling to frame a face that was mostly hidden. All I could see was a delicate jawline and a pair of pale lips pressed tightly together. She was slightly hunched over, like a frightened deer, but she wasn't begging for mercy. "What's going on here?" I asked. My tone was neutral, without any pressure behind it. But the apprentices were already scared out of their wits. They waved their hands frantically, words tumbling out. Sir, it was Leah. She messed up her duties and delayed an order. We were just teaching her a lesson. Nothing more, we swear. They'd never been this close to me before. The most they could hope for was a distant glimpse if I happened to be leaving the mountain. I glanced at Leah, tapping the jade pendant at my waist. I wanted to see how she'd react. Normally, a disciple in this situation would either plead for help or try to defend themselves. But she just slowly lifted her head, revealing a delicate face. She had fine features, fair skin, and a pair of almond-shaped eyes that were clear and bright. Right now, they were brimming with unshed tears, her eyes red-rimmed, yet she refused to let a single one fall. It was a look designed to inspire pity. Her lips remained sealed, not a single word of defense offered. Interesting. I had no time for petty squabbles between apprentices. If it weren't for this system and this girl, Leah, I'd never have set foot in the service annex. Let it go this time, I said coolly. Watch yourselves in the future. Yes, yes. Thank you for your mercy, prime disciple. As if granted a pardon from the king, the apprentices scrambled to their feet, shot one last look at Leah, and practically sprinted away, terrified of annoying me for another second. I turned to leave, but a soft female voice called out from behind me, timid but with a hint of resolve. Prime disciple Sterling, wait. I stopped and looked back. Leah was looking up at me, the hurt in her almond eyes now mixed with sincerity. She gave a small bow. Thank you for helping me. I met her gaze calmly, didn't reply, and walked away, leaving her standing there, watching my back with a complicated expression in her eyes. Back in my sanctum on Skeereach Peak, the moment I sat down, the system's notification sounded in my mindscape. Ding! Newbie mission complete. Reward of 10,000 mana crystals has been issued to the host dimensional ring. I summoned my dimensional ring and checked its contents. Sure enough, there was a new pile of 10,000 gleaming white mana crystals. The energy they gave off was faint, but they were real. Getting something for practically zero effort was amusing. I glanced at the system in my mindscape. Seeing no new tasks, I put the whole incident out of my mind and went back to my meditation. 10,000 crystals were pocket change to me, nothing to get worked up about. Several days passed. My routine was simple. Cultivate in my sanctum, browse the ancient texts in the Academy's archives, or occasionally offer a word of guidance to my junior disciples. Life was peaceful and predictable. I'd completely forgotten about Leah Miller and her strange system, until one afternoon, as I was holding a 1,000-year-old ether bloom to study its mana flows, the system blared urgently in my head. Ding! Emergency mission issued. Proceed to the east side of the outer sparring grounds and prevent the host's fiancée, Victoria Davenport, from bullying the objective, Leah Miller. Reward: 10,000 mana crystals. My hand holding the earth froze. My eyes widened in disbelief. I thought I must have misheard. Victoria Davenport, prime disciple of the Silverwood Conservatory, my fiancée since childhood. Her talent was extraordinary, her beauty was legendary, and her power was a match for my own. She was proud, aloof, with standards so high most people were invisible to her. Why in the world would she go out of her way to bully a service apprentice? It was absurd. Besides, Silverwood was a great distance from Ethelgard. Victoria hadn't sent any message saying she was coming. How could she suddenly appear at our outer sparring grounds? Riddled with questions, I stood up and headed in the direction the system indicated. I had to see what this was all about. The outer sparring grounds were usually bustling, but the east side was eerily quiet today. From a distance, I saw a figure in a lavender dress standing there, the hem fluttering in the breeze. She had a graceful posture and a stunning face. It was Victoria. A frosty aura radiated from her. Her face was frighteningly cold as she stared down the girl in front of her with a look of appraisal and annoyance. And standing before her was, of course, Leah Miller. She was still in that same old service uniform, but now she was tense, her head slightly bowed, hands twisting the hem of her tunic. It was the same look of defiant victimhood I'd seen in the service annex. A few Outer Ward disciples stood nearby, all looking nervous, clearly too intimidated by Victoria's presence to get any closer. He strode over. Victoria sensed my approach, and her expression instantly softened. The chill around her vanished as she rushed forward and threw her arms around my waist, burying her face in my chest. "Ethan," she murmured, her voice soft. "You're finally here." I patted her back, my gaze traveling over her shoulder to give Leah a meaningful look. She seemed to feel my eyes on her and glanced up. Her own eyes were filled with that same stubbornness, but she couldn't hide the pitiful, damsel in distress act she was putting on. "What happened?" I asked quietly, my tone gentle but probing. Victoria pulled back, rubbing her cheek against my chest with a hint of frustration. "I wanted to surprise you, so I came all this way. But I'd barely set foot in Ethelgard before I started hearing rumors from the Outer Ward disciples. They were saying you, the Prime Disciple, were personally looking out for some girl from the service annex." She pointed a finger at Leah, her eyes filled with confusion. "Ethan, why would you ever pay attention to a service apprentice?" I understood immediately. The timing of these rumors was too perfect, appearing just as Victoria arrived and reaching her ears so quickly. It had to be deliberate. My eyes fell on Leah again. She just stood there, not defending herself, not denying anything, as if she were silently shoulder all the blame. Her posture made it look like I really was protecting her, and that Victoria was just being jealous and unreasonable. "It's just baseless gossip. I'll have the people who started it dealt with," I said, looking down at Victoria. My voice was soft. "Come on, let me show you something interesting. Don't let this nonsense ruin your mood." Victoria nodded, obediently taking my arm. As we walked past Leah, she deliberately lifted her chin, a subtle hint of challenge in her eyes. I didn't look back, but I could feel Leah's gaze on me, complex and maybe even a little resentful. By that evening, a new rumor was spreading like wildfire through Ethelgard. Several of my juniors claimed to have seen Victoria storming away from Skeerich Peak, red-eyed and upset, clearly after a fight with me. The story that I'd turned against my fiancé for a service apprentice intensified. Some even whispered that I'd grown tired of Victoria and was looking to break our engagement to be with Leah. I ignored all of it. It was just an act. Victoria was proud, and she was more than happy to play along with the rumors. It was a good way to lull whoever was behind this into a false sense of security and see what their real endgame was. It was interesting. The next morning, with nothing better to do, I went to the Moonview gazebo on the mountainside. The view was incredible, overlooking most of Ethelgard. Mist swirled through the valleys below, and a cool breeze carried the fresh scent of pine and damp earth. I leaned against a pillar, idly twisting a thread of mana around my finger. Before long, a slender figure made her way up the path from below. It was Leah, carrying a broom this time. Apparently, she was assigned to sweep the mountainside paths today. She saw me in the gazebo and hesitated for a moment. After a brief pause, she clutched her broom and slowly approached, stopping just outside the structure. She bowed slightly, her voice filled with guilt and choked with emotion. "Prime Disciple Sterling, I'm so sorry. It's all my fault that Lady Victoria got angry. It's my fault you two fought." Her shoulders trembled, her eyes reddened, and tears welled up, threatening to spill. She looked utterly consumed by self-blame. I glanced up at her, my voice flat. "It has nothing to do with you. Don't worry about it." Then, I raised a hand and summoned a sword. Its blade was a milky white, humming with a faint aura of power, a low-grade, ether-forged weapon. I tossed it to her. "Take this." Leah caught it instinctively. Her fingers brushed the cool metal, and her face went rigid with shock. She looked at the sword, then quickly tried to hand it back, shaking her head. "Prime Disciple, this is too valuable. I can't accept it." "I told you to take it," I said dismissively, not looking at her again. I turned and walked out of the gazebo, disappearing into the morning mist. In my mindscape, the system's notification chimed right on cue. Ding! Mission complete. Reward of 10,000 mana crystals has been issued. A faint smile touched my lips. That was easy. All I had to do was wait in a gazebo, as instructed, and give away a sword worth maybe 50 mana crystals to get 10,000 in return. It was a profitable trade, plain and simple. As for Leah's reaction, I couldn't have cared less. Whether she accepted it or not made no difference to me. The mission was done, the crystals were mine, and that was all that mattered. Over the next few days, the system kept issuing small, trivial tasks. A chance encounter with Leah, helping her with some minor problem. The reward was always 10,000 mana crystals. I did them without a second thought, and the crystal count in my dimensional ring grew steadily. A few days later, a new mission popped up. Ding! Main quest issued. Help objective Leah Miller pass the Outer War trials and become an Outer War disciple. Reward: 10,000 mana crystals. For a mediocre apprentice, the trials might have been difficult. For me, it took a single sentence. I found an opportunity when an Outer Ward administrator was passing by Skirich Peak. I casually mentioned that he should keep an eye on a service apprentice named Leah Miller. The man was already deferential to me. Hearing my request, he practically fell over himself, promising to take care of it. That afternoon, news came that Leah had passed her trials and was officially an Outer Ward disciple. The system's chime sounded in my head, and another 10,000 crystals appeared in my ring. Getting crystals this easily, I was starting to think this system wasn't so bad after all. A week later, the Outer War disciples were assigned a mission to gather herbs in the wildwood at the base of the mountain. Not long after the assignments went out, the system pinged me again. Ding! Emergency mission issued. Proceed to the wildwood and protect objective Leah Miller. Reward: 10,000 mana crystals. The idea of going on an excursion immediately killed my interest. The Wildwood's mana was chaotic, and you had to deal with low-level beasts. It was a hassle. There was no need for me to go personally. I summoned my personal guard. He was a gold core adept, more than capable of handling anything in the Wildwood. I ordered him to shadow the Outer Ward disciple group and ensure Leah's safety. He acknowledged the order and departed. 2 days later, the mission complete notification sounded. The crystals were mine. I hadn't lifted a finger. Effortless. A few more days passed before the system issued its next task. This one actually made me pause. Ding! Main quest issued. Help objective Leah Miller achieve the foundation stage. Reward: 10,000 mana crystals. I couldn't help but laugh out loud at the text in my mindscape. It was ridiculous. Leah's talent was poor, her mana channels impure. Her cultivation speed was glacial. She'd only joined Ethelgard in the first place because her family was destitute and she needed a place to stay. Reaching the foundation stage was no small feat. A talented disciple needed foundation pills and months of dedicated effort. For someone like her, even with the pills, success was a long shot. Helping her personally would cost me far more in time and energy than 10,000 mana crystals were worth. I wasn't about to do that kind of thankless work. Over the next few days, the system seemed to sense my refusal. It started nagging me constantly, the mechanical voice echoing in my mindscape until it was disrupting my meditation. Host, please complete the mission. Host, complete the mission immediately, host. My patience wore thin. I was about to focus my ethereal sense and try to forcibly expel the damn thing, or even ask my master to remove it for good, when it suddenly went silent. I let the idea go for now. 2 days later, the system updated the mission. Ding! Mission reward adjusted. Help objective Leah Miller achieve the foundation stage. Reward: 50,000 mana crystals. 50,000? I raised an eyebrow. That was a significant increase. Enough to trade for several high-grade herbs. Maybe it was worth my time after all. I left my sanctum and found Leah's residence. The Outer Ward disciple dorms were an improvement over the service annex, but still simple, with small courtyards and thin mana. Leah was meditating in her yard. She sensed my presence and quickly stood, bowing with a complicated look on her face. I cut to the chase, summoning 3 glowing white pills that pulsed with potent energy, foundation pills. I tossed them to her. Take these. I'll stand guard. Leah caught them, her eyes wide with shock. She stared at me in disbelief. Prime disciple, are these foundation pills? Yes, I said flatly, taking a seat on a stone bench in her yard. Take them now. Don't waste my time. She snapped out of her daze, looked at the pills in her hand, then back at me. Finally, she sat down cross-legged and swallowed them. The pills dissolved instantly, flooding her body with a surge of pure mana. I raised a hand, weaving a simple protective ward around the courtyard to block any disturbances. At the same time, I extended a thread of my ethereal sense to monitor the mana flowing inside her, subtly guiding it to help her stabilize her breakthrough. The power of the pills was immense. Leah's cultivation level slowly climbed as the mana in her core compressed, gradually forming the liquid energy of the foundation stage. About 2 hours later, a burst of power erupted from her. Her cultivation had stabilized at the initial foundation stage. She slowly opened her eyes, which were shining with joy and disbelief. She'd clearly never expected to succeed. I dispelled the ward and stood to leave. Leah scrambled to her feet and stepped in front of me, her voice urgent. "Prime disciple, wait." I stopped, looking at her. "What is it? Why are you helping me?" she asked, her eyes filled with confusion. "From saving me in the service annex, to giving me that sword, to helping me become an outer ward disciple, and now this. And that time in the Wildwood, when I was in danger. The person who saved me, that was you too, wasn't it?" The questions tumbled out of her, her gaze searching mine, desperate for an explanation for my repeated assistance. I paused. I couldn't exactly tell her I was doing it all for system rewards. That was too absurd. After a moment, I gave her a simple, vague answer. I owe someone a favor. Without another word, I turned and left. Leah stood frozen in place, watching me go, her expression a mixture of bewilderment and self-doubt. She clutched the hem of her tunic and whispered to herself, "This isn't how it's supposed to go." She was a transmigrator from Earth, accidentally bound to a special system. A system she couldn't use herself, but could bind to someone else, issuing missions that would benefit her. And the person she chose was me, Ethan Sterling, the prime disciple of Ethelgard. Before she'd arrived in this world, she'd read countless romance novels. She knew the male lead almost always fell for the stubborn, pitiful type. So every time something happened, she'd deliberately put on that exact act. She thought I would slowly fall for her, maybe even turn on my fiancé for her sake. But my attitude remained cold. Even when I helped her, I never crossed any lines, never showed the slightest hint of affection. It was nothing like the stories she'd read. But he fought with Victoria over me, she thought, frowning. Why is he still acting like this? She couldn't make sense of it. A few days later, I received another mission. Ding, daily mission issued. Go to the Outer Ward Emporium and visit Objective Leah Miller. Reward, 10,000 mana cristals. Now that she was an Outer Ward disciple, Leah had been assigned to work at the Emporium, a small shop that sold low-grade herbs, potions, and artifacts. The work was easy, just stocking shelves and keeping ledgers, a major step up from the service annex. I followed the system's prompt to the shop. Leah was standing by a shelf, organizing goods. She stiffened when she saw me enter, then put down what she was holding and walked over, a complex expression on her face. This time, there was no damsel in distress act. She spoke directly, her voice laced with frustration and hurt. "Ethan Sterling, what is your deal?" I raised an eyebrow, but said nothing, waiting for her to continue. "The system I gave you," she said, looking up at me, her eyes filled with resentment. "Is this how you use it? By just going through the motions?" Her words actually surprised me. So, the system had come from her. No wonder every mission revolved around her. "This system," I said, my voice even, "why not use it yourself?" Her expression flickered. She clearly hadn't expected that question. Her eyes darted away for a second before she forced herself to look at me again. I like you, so I gave it to you. I wanted you to pay more attention to me." Watching her flustered act, I couldn't help but smile. "Is that so?" I said, my tone certain. "I think it's because you're under some kind of restriction. You can't use it yourself, so you had to bind it to me." "Correct." Her pupils contracted. She stared at me, her mouth slightly agape, in utter disbelief that I'd guessed the truth in one shot. Before she came to this world, the system had given her exactly that condition. She had to find a host. And in all of Ethelgard, the most promising, handsome, and powerful young man who fit the criteria was me. So she'd had the system bind to me, thinking she could use it to capture my heart and make me hers alone. She never imagined things would turn out like this. Just as Leah was reeling, the soft sound of footsteps came from the shop's entrance. Victoria, dressed in her signature lavender, swept in. She walked straight to my side and leaned against me affectionately, looping her arm through mine. Her voice was a playful pout. Ethan, I've been hiding in your sanctum for days just to help you with this act. I haven't even been able to go outside, let alone spend any real time with you. I am exhausted. Leah stared at Victoria nestled against me, at our easy intimacy. Her eyes went wide with disbelief, her lips trembling, unable to form words. She'd never imagined that my relationship with Victoria was this strong. The rumors of our fight, they were fake, an act, put on for her benefit. I ran my hand through Victoria's hair, my gaze landing on Leah. My voice was cool and detached. I don't know where your system came from, and I don't care. But you need to understand something. I am the prime disciple of Ethelgard. My fiancée is the prime disciple of Silverwood. Her beauty, her talent, her family, they're all second to none. I would never throw that away for a mediocre Outer War disciple. I'm not that stupid. Leah's face went pale. She swayed slightly, her eyes burning with humiliation and resentment, but she couldn't argue. Everything I said was true. Compared to Victoria, she was nothing. I looked at her broken expression and continued calmly. However, this system of yours is a decent way to earn some extra crystals. If you're willing, we could continue this. Collaboration. We split the rewards. 80-20, my favor. In your dreams. Leah snapped, her head jerking up, eyes blazing with defiance. Even without the system, I don't need your charity. I shrugged, completely unconcerned by her outburst. I took Victoria's hand and turned to leave. Suit yourself. Come find me when you change your mind. We walked out of the shop together, leaving Leah standing alone, pale and trembling with humiliation. In the following days, the system continued to issue tasks, most of which involved some form of intimacy with Leah. Hug her, comfort her, even a mission to confess my love for her. The rewards were substantial, but I ignored them completely. The notification chimes echoed in my mindscape for a few days, but when I gave no response, they eventually fell silent. About 2 weeks later, I was meditating in my sanctum when my guard came to report that an Outer Ward disciple named Leah Miller had sent a message asking to see me at the Emporium. I raised an eyebrow. I knew what this meant. She couldn't hold out any longer. I made my way down to the shop. Leah was already waiting. She still looked pale, but the defiant anger was gone, replaced by a look of reluctant compromise. I walked over to a display shelf, picked up a low-grade artifact, and toyed with it, looking down at her. Change your mind. Leah bit her lip and nodded. We can cooperate, but the reward has to be a 50-50 split. Impossible, I said without hesitation. Best I can do is 70-30. My favor. 60-40, she shot back, looking at me with desperation in her eyes. No less. Otherwise, I'd rather we don't cooperate at all. I considered it for a moment. 60-40 was acceptable. Most of the tasks were simple enough. Even giving her 40%, I'd still make a tidy profit with minimal effort. There was no need to push it. Fine, I agreed. 60-40 it is. From now on, I'll complete the missions as they come. When the rewards are paid out, I'll have someone deliver your share. Leah bit her lip and nodded, her eyes filled with humiliation. But she had no other choice. For the past few weeks, she'd been living on a meager stipend for Outer War disciples. It wasn't enough. Her cultivation had stalled, and she couldn't even afford the basic herbs for daily practice. If this continued, she'd be surpassed by everyone else and eventually expelled from Ethelgard. Backed into a corner, she had to compromise. A pleasure doing business with you, I said with a faint smile, and turned to leave. As she watched me go, a bitter laugh escaped Leah's lips. She thought being transported to a new world made her the main character. She thought that, even with mediocre talent, a clever use of her system would be enough to win the hero's heart. That's how it was supposed to work. So where did it all go wrong? All her fantasies had been shattered. Reality had just slapped her across the face. Hard. And now, she was finally awake. And so began my long and profitable career of milking the system for all it was worth. The missions remained simple, and I completed them casually, pocketing 60% of the free rewards. It cost me nothing and allowed me to amass a fortune in crystals, which I used to acquire high-grade resources to further my own cultivation. It was a win-win situation. As for Leah, I never gave her a second thought. She was just a tool, a means to an end. When the day came that I got bored, or the system was no longer useful, I'd figure out what to do then. The path of cultivation is long and arduous. Only power and resources are fundamental. Everything else is just a distraction along the way. When Victoria and I were finally married, Leah didn't even have the right to watch from a distance. End.